everyone. I'm going to talk today about something that makes me feel very vulnerable. Since I announced the PubTalk Live publishing talk show that I'm going to be starting on October 12th, I've got a lot of questions from people that are like, well, aren't you scared that this is going to happen? Or aren't you worried about XYZ? And the answer is almost always yes. So something that most people know about me is I am an extrovert, and for some reason that makes people assume that I don't have any anxiety, that I am just confident in everything I do, and that cannot be further from the truth. So even though I usually seem pretty chill and seem like I have it all together, I definitely worry about things all the time, and PubTalk Live is no different from those things that I worry about. And I probably this past week have been worrying about it more than almost anything else in my life. I don't really express worries and fears a lot because it makes me feel so vulnerable, and there are a few people that I feel comfortable with. But the other day I was talking to my good friend Bess, and we write together every Sunday, and as I was walking out the door, she was talking about the show, and I was like, who thought a live talk show was a good idea? Like, I'm gonna have to talk to that person. So I wanted to talk about some of my fears and worries related to the show with y'all, because maybe if I talk about them, I'll be less afraid of them. I don't know, I think that's how it's supposed to work. So the first one, and the big one, is I am afraid that no one will watch the show. I'm afraid that I won't be able to reach the audience that I want to reach. I mean, who am I? I am not a popular author. I don't have a huge following on social media. And I do know that I'm going to have to put in work to build my audience slowly. And I'm going to have to keep hoping that people show up after they've watched the first episode, and they keep showing up for later episodes. And it's a lot of work to gamble like that, to think I may do all of this and put all of this time and energy into it, and no one will see it and no one will enjoy it. So that is a huge worry of mine. So the show is live, and even though I really believe in the reasons why I'm making it live, and I really think it's important that it is live, that means there is so much more that can go wrong than there can be with a recorded show. So the big one that I can't control is tech failures. What if my computer stops working? What if my camera glitches? What if my Wi-Fi goes out? What if my power goes out? What if my microphone stops working? What if my guest microphone or camera or computer stop working? What if my upstairs neighbors are super loud that day? They're pretty much never loud, but it's still something that I worry about because this is how my brain works. I also worry that I will slip up and say something stupid. It's really tough whenever you're live on video to make sure that your thoughts are getting across exactly as you planned. And most of the time it's innocent. Most of the time it's just like maybe a little confusing, but I'm worried that I'm going to slip up in a big way and say something different from what I had planned and different from what I meant, and that it is going to hurt some people's feelings, or it's going to make me look bad. I think we've all had that moment where we try to say something important and it comes out wrong, and the message doesn't get across, and maybe a message different from what we originally intended is what comes across. And so I'm really worried about that happening live with people watching, and then it being recorded and up on YouTube for like a long time. I'm also worried about what if a guest that I thought was super cool says something offensive, and how am I going to react to that if it happens in real time? I am also worried about trolls. I have a little bit of experience with trolls. Just a couple of weeks ago on one of my query videos or something, someone had commented, "Oh, I thought this was a guy until I started playing it." And I have a little bit of issue with gender identity, so if someone says something like that live while I'm doing a broadcast, how am I going to react to that? How am I going to cope with that? And the thing is, I know how to deal with trolls. My most popular article on the internet is about Trump and 50 Shades of Grey at the same time, and it was put up on Reddit, the bad part of Reddit. And so I know what it's like to deal with trolls, but I'm still worried about it because I'll be live on video dealing with them, which I think is a whole other ball game. I am also really worried about dead air. So I'm worried about both myself freezing and just not knowing how to continue, not knowing what to say next. I'm also worried about, because the guests that I have invited have like really great things to say, but what happens if they're the kind of person that needs to be coaxed and they're giving one word answers and I'm trying to like get them to open up a little bit more? How is that going to look live on camera? I don't know. I am worried that people are not going to like the show, that they're going to think it's boring or stupid or not worth their time. This is like a kind of a different format from other formats I've seen before. And so I'm worried that people aren't going to like it. The show was not a whim. It was something that I thought about for a long time. And I took a lot of care and planning and thinking out what I was going to do. And so it's important to me that people like the show and like the format because I think it's great. And so if people don't like it, then that's going to feel like a judgment on me. And I know everyone won't like it, and I don't expect everyone to like it, but I do hope that at least some people will like it. I'm also worried that I won't be able to continue getting guests that I want to have on the show, which seems really weird because I have some really great guests coming up that I've booked already, like guests that I am just blown away by, and I am so happy that they've agreed to be on my show, even though it's not a tested concept and they have no idea how many people are going to be watching. And I think they're fantastic guests, but I also worry that at some point, like, someone's going to figure out that I'm a fraud and I don't know what I'm doing and I'm making this up as I go along. I also want to make sure that my guests are varied, and most of my experience, most of my contacts are in young adult, romance, and science fiction and fantasy. And I do want to expand beyond that, and I want it to be a show that people from all different areas of the industry can enjoy. But if I can't find the guests outside of those like 3 categories, how am I going to make sure that other people will be interested in it? How am I going to make sure that people who don't write young adult are going to be interested in the episodes that feature a young adult author? I also set up a Patreon for the show, which feels a little premature, but I also wanted to just set it up ahead of time so it's kind of part of the universe of the show before we get started, because I think launching it later will create its own set of issues. But I'm worried that because of that, people are going to think that I just am doing this because I want to make money. And that is not true at all. The only reason I set up the Patreon is because I have already spent so much of my own money that I don't really have a lot to spend. And so I think a Patreon will make it easier. If people support it, will make it easier for me to continue making the show because I won't have to continue shelling out my own money. I was very fortunate that my birthday was just last month, at the end of last month. So some of the things that I needed, I was able to ask for as birthday presents. Like I'll show you my microphone. That was a gift to me from my friend Mohammed. He bought that for my birthday. Also, the lights that I have that are great. I love them so much, even though they're huge and I don't know what to do with them because I have a very small apartment. Even the lights I could only purchase because my sister gave me an Amazon gift card. And so that's the reason why I started the Patreon. And so I'm worried that people are going to think that I'm just trying to make money when I'm just trying to create and be able to have the show support itself so that I can continue creating without worrying about the money. But then on the other hand, I'm worried that no one's going to support the Patreon because why would they? So after I announced, I received a couple comments from people where they said something like, there's nothing like the show really out there. And there are things I think similar to it, but there's nothing quite exactly like it that I know of. And I wonder if there's a reason for that, if it's because something like this just doesn't work and that's why there's nothing quite like it out there. There are podcasts out there that are very similar in format to what PubTalk Live is going to be. And there are YouTube shows where people interview authors and talk about the industry. But I don't think there's anything that's quite exactly like this. There are some things that are very similar, and that just makes me wonder if it's not because I'm the first one that came up with the idea, but maybe it's because that format doesn't work. So I have all these fears and these worries despite the fact that I really believe in the show. I believe in the format, I believe in the concept, I believe in the decisions that I've made. So I go back and forth between this is going to be amazing and this is going to flop. And I will have spent like half of my Saturdays working on a show that's gonna flop. So, with all of that being said, I still believe in the show and I believe in its potential and I believe in what it can offer our publishing community. I also believe that if I work hard and stay consistent and keep the idea of serving our community at the forefront of my mind, that I can make the show into what I think it can be. So I'm not going forward with the show because I don't have doubts or fears about it. I'm going forward despite those doubts and fears because I think it has the potential to be something really cool and maybe great. And then also, even if it is ultimately deemed a failure, the worst that's really happened is I've spent a lot of hours talking with just some really cool publishing people, and that's not so bad. So now that I've just kind of told you all the reasons why maybe you don't want to watch the show, I hope you will tune in on this Saturday, October 12th at 9 p.m. Eastern for our first show. It's going to be on this channel. The episode is already scheduled, so you can go and set a reminder. And if you want to make sure to see upcoming shows, you can click the subscribe button down there and hit the little bell so you get a notification about upcoming shows. And I hope you'll tune in and check it out and let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. I'm worried that my dog is gonna walk across the floor while I'm filming and make that noise.